All right, so what I want to do is just let's spitball. What are the terms of a contract that we care about? So the one that everybody negotiates right out of the gates is price, right? That's like the number one negotiation term. So question about price. Do we want to get it at the highest price possible or the lowest price possible?
Everybody, okay, I see a bunch of thumbs down. Good, lowest price.
Okay, lowest price possible.
Buy low, sell high, right? Guys, everybody understands that?
Yep. Okay, so purchase price. So next thing that we're going to care about, if I can spell, EMD. Earnest deposit.
That's your EMD, your earnest money deposit.
Okay, so earnest deposit is also called consideration, and it is legally required in order to create a valid and enforceable contract. Yeah. They cannot be drunk or not of sound mind. They can't be forced into signing something, and there has to be in writing, and there has to be consideration. Now, question: what?
They can't be drunk?
They cannot be drunk.
I gotta throw out at least 10 of my contracts.
And look, you think that's a game, but
no, it's not.
I actually early in my career was like, let's celebrate. The guy he was like, let's walk around and I'll show you the property and we'll drink some beers and all this stuff. Well, one beer turned into 3 beers, and then we signed a contract and we had another beer, and I was like, oh my God, I gotta get the frick out of here. This guy's like drinking.
Yeah.
Next day, he wanted out of the contract. Nope, I was drunk. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
I had to let him out. Another wholesaler came in behind me, offered more money, and he probably drank beers with that dude and signed another agreement. And I had to let him out. And so it was just, that's a really bad practice. Do not do it under any circumstances. And earnest deposit. What is a standard earnest deposit when we're working with in a wholesale transaction with a seller? So here's what I'll tell you about earnest. First off, earnest doesn't necessarily have to be money. It could be anything of value. I could put up my mountain bike as earnest deposit if I wanted to. The bill of sale on my mountain bike. Like, people don't traditionally do that. We put up money because that's the easiest, cleanest way to do it. Now, can you put $10 as earnest deposit, have everybody sign the contract, and we move on? I'm seeing some yeses.
Yes. But
let's say everybody agreed to $10 as earnest deposit. Can we do it?
Yes.
Technically, we can do it. Let me tell you why you wouldn't want to do it. You're not going to want to do that because a good attorney is going to chew you up and spit you out. When that seller tries to back out of the deal and they hand their contract to a good real estate attorney, the real estate attorney is going to look at it and go, $10 earnest? That's not common. Therefore, this buyer never had intention to buy the house. An intention is what they look at.
Yeah.
All right. Next, number 3. What else are we negotiating? Who the closing, or let me go back. Oops.
It just had that arrow back right there.
I found a eraser. So.
There you go.
Yep.
Close of escrow date. Okay, close of escrow date. Do we want this to go as far out as possible or as close as possible?
We would prefer for it to be as close as possible, but really we want to make sure that we're not forcing the issue. We want to close on their timeline. Sometimes people need 45 days to get out of it, and that's fine. We want to allow that to happen, but we want that close of escrow to happen so we can have that fast cash cycle. But remember, you've got to have that inspection period in there because that's our time to assign that contract.
Yeah. So when we're negotiating, we want to push this out. Okay? We want to negotiate it out because we need time to find a cash buyer. Yeah. Now, the way our contracts are written, we can close on or before a specific date.
Correct.
So we have flexibility, like Forrest said, to once we find a buyer, let's close, baby.
Yeah.
However, if you, like a lot of times, what is our pitch? We're rolling in, and every investor has the same common pitch at its core, right? It's I can pay cash for your property. It's a hassle-free sale. You don't have to make any repairs. I can close on a date of your choice, right? Fast, friendly, flexible, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Now, we lead with, we're closed quickly. We can close by next Friday. What's more important to you? Getting cash in the next 60 to 90 days, or would next Friday be better? Right? Oh, I would rather have cash by next Friday. Okay, cool. We can make that happen. But then when you actually sit down to fill out the contract, we're now going to extend out that closing as far as we can. Okay? Just think about the psychology. We're kind of walking back that statement of we'll close on Friday because we need time for our title and escrow officers or the closing agent, the attorney, to actually do their job. And a lot of these people are busy. They're not going to be able to close in 3 days.
Yeah.
They're busy. They have to run title reports and like the files got to get fully turned in and built, and they have a process they got to go through. So
And I know that Cody's telling you these things, but this is the transparency that we've discussed that you need to educate your seller on. Exactly what Cody just said should be your script to your potential sellers. There's all of these factors in place: title, escrow. I don't own those companies, right? So I can't control how fast they move or how many files they have at a time. So what we like to do is we like to say 90 days or sooner. We've seen it happen in 7 days, 21 days. So we're obviously going to push for this to happen sooner, but 90 days or sooner is something that we throw out with the expectation that we're aligned. We want to get this done as quickly as possible, but there are extenuating circumstances. So we're going to put that at 90 days or sooner. Now, some of you can say 60 days, but 90 days or sooner, that or sooner in there allows us to close faster if we can, but it also gives us that time to be able to find that buyer and to be able to get the property to the finish line.
Yeah, that's a great way to overcome the objection too. When a lot of sellers, well, I want you to put 14 days from now on the contract, and so by walking them through the process, it holds us to a fire. You have to let them know, like, look, what we're gonna do is standard on our contracts is always about 30 to 45 days, but we have their on or before because we can't control what the title company is going to do. A lot of times, if they're backed up, they might take 10 days, sometimes 30 days. And this is where you're gonna attach the emotional point where you're negotiating this. What I don't want to do, Cody, is I don't want to inconvenience you and have you sign an extension or an addendum where it says now we need more extra time. So we will try to get this done sooner, but standard it's 30 to 45 days, on or before 30 to 45 days.
So let's just say you get some Mr. and Mrs. Know-It-All, former real estate agent, former attorney, hard ass,
Sounds like
driver personality that's just like, you need to put 14 days on the contract. Guess what you're going to do? You're going to put 14 days on the contract. This is a game of control. Like, don't overthink this.
Yeah.
Like, we're giving you kind of a framework for you to think like a wholesaler or a successful wholesaler where you can go, okay, I know I said I could close by next Friday, but the reality is I need more time. So when I'm walking them through the contract, I'm going to say, listen, I'm going to put, our company policy is to close on or before 30 days from today. Yeah. Now, my goal is to get it done by next Friday. And as long as my closing agent, who is very busy, one of the best closing agents in town, and we always want to use a good closing agent, that's why she's busy, is because they make sure that the title record is all cleaned up and the transfer ownership is done properly and I get the right title insurance and all that stuff, and that you get every dollar that's owed to you modeled out on a settlement statement, so it's very clear what you're getting and what's being paid off, so that way when you sell me this property, it's done properly. Okay, so obviously our goal is to do it faster, but on or before 30 days is standard company policy. Now, we need it in 14 days. Why do you need it in 14 days, Mr. Seller? What are you worried about? My goal is to get it done in 14 days too, but what if the title company can't do it that fast? What do we do then? And a lot of times when you just throw it back at them, like, well, what's going to happen in 14 days when the title company can't move that fast? I don't know. Okay, so why don't we just kind of cut it down the middle and we'll do on or before 21 days? Will that work for you, sir? You see how it's just like you just got to push it out as far as you can.
Absolutely.
All right? All right, number 4. What's another term that we're negotiating? If I can freaking spell. Okay? Where we're closing. Who chooses the closing agent? Now, Forrest said something earlier that's very important, which is you want to have an investor-friendly closing agent close these deals.
Absolutely.
Okay. Who technically gets to choose where a transaction closes? The seller or the buyer? The buyer gets to choose where closing occurs. Okay, always. So what if I'm a seller and I say, I won't sign a contract unless we close with my cousin who works at Security Title?
Man, cornered.
What are you going to do? Here's what I would do. Okay? Contract's going to Security Title. No, you're going to say, hey, get me your cousin's phone number.
Yeah.
Okay? I want to have a conversation with them. Okay, that's step one. Hey, why throw a major temper tantrum in a moment where you don't even know if it's a big deal or not? Right? At this moment, it's like, hey, get me in touch with your cousin. Let me have a conversation with them. And what happens is if you talk to the cousin and, hey, do you work with a lot of investors? Do you work with a lot of rehabbers? Do you work with a lot of landlords? Do you work with a lot of wholesalers? Like, what's your background experience? And notice how I threw all of those out versus, do you work with wholesalers and allow assignment of contracts and da-da-da, right? And by the way, I'm just going to step back real quick. I disclose to every person I've ever gotten a house under contract from that there is a potential that I'm going to wholesale their house. There is no hidden agenda here. What do you do with the properties that you buy? Great question, Mr. Seller. I do a plethora of things.
Yeah.
We're a development company. Sometimes we buy it, renovate it, sell it for a big profit. Sometimes we run Airbnbs. Sometimes I turn it into an Airbnb and I'm off to the races doing my my Airbnb thing.
You know, the 4 things that are really important, glad you brought that up. There's 4 things very important before you get the contract signed. Disclose, and put it in writing.
Yes,
that's right.
And it's built into our contract that we have the right to assign the contract. Yeah. But Cody, what is an assignment of contract? Glad you asked, Mr. Seller. It's very simple. It gives us the right for us to move this contract from one legal entity to another. Sometimes, like for me as an investor, I'm always trying to protect my assets. Sometimes I move it from one legal entity to another one of my legal entities. Sometimes I bring in a financial partner. They partner with me on the deal. Well, then we have a new legal entity, and I got to be able to move it to that. But all you need to know is that this purchase price and the net number to you is coming to you regardless of which entity I put the property in or what happens. When I tell you that we're going to close for cash, that means that you're going to get the cash that you need on the closing date. Okay? And all the liens will be paid off. It'll be clear title to me, and I will eventually do whatever I do to the property. But at the end of the day, do you really care if I turn it into an Airbnb, renovate it, or burn it to the ground?
As long as you're getting your price,
Yep.
everything should be copacetic.
No, I really don't care. Okay, cool. Not that, I'm glad that you asked that. Those are all great questions. All right, let's talk about where to close escrow. You just keep it moving. Number 5, ready for this? What do you guys think the next term that we actually care about is? How about this one? Who pays closing costs?
Shit.
On the buy side of the transaction, who is paying closing costs? Is it the seller? Is it the buyer? Or are you splitting it? Typically, when we are making wholesale offers, part of our pitch is, listen, this is a fast, friendly, simple transaction from your point of view. I'm going to make you an offer, and minus any liens or encumbrances or any fees or anything that you owe on the property, what I offer to you, once we pay off all those things and clear the title, everything else is going to be a net number to you. And what that means is I'm going to cover the closing costs. Okay? So typically, what makes it such an enticing deal to a seller is that it's not like a standard sale. When you list and sell with a real estate agent or to a traditional buyer, typically what happens is the seller pays their half of the closing costs and the buyer pays their half of the closing costs.
Typical
but
traditional
with a wholesale
sale
transaction, we're saying we pay cash, we close on a date of your choice, we'll cover all the closing costs. There's there's nothing, no repairs needed. It's going to be fast, friendly, flexible, right? And so we're going to offer to pay that. All right. So who pays closing costs? You. Now, let's say
but
during
is it really you?
Let's say, well, right now it is. Let's say during the negotiation, the seller increases their purchase price. So you offer 150,000, they're stuck at 200,000, and they're saying I won't budge, and you're saying, well, I really need to be here, and finally you come up to 170, 175. Let's just say 175. Meet in the middle, right? That's fair, isn't it? And the seller goes, I really don't want to go that low, but I don't know, I guess. And I'll say, great. My only one small little caveat, because I'm paying so much more, I know my business partner is going to go back to more of a traditional sale where you cover your half of the closing costs, I cover my half of the closing costs. That's fair, isn't it? Levers. Negotiation levers, it's all. If you ask for more money, I'm going to find another term somewhere in the world, and I'm going to pull that lever. It's like, yes, I'll come up to 25 grand. However, let's go back to you paying your half, me paying my half. That essentially, closing costs are going to be anywhere between $1,000 to $5,000 typically. Some states it could be a lot more if there's like big transfer tax and fees and all that other stuff. But let's just say on average it's a couple $1,000, $2,000-$3,000. Well, you could just carve out and save yourself $1,500 to $2,000 right out of the gate just by saying that one simple thing. Yep. Sure, I'll pay you a little bit more, but let's just move back to more of a standard traditional sale. Just like when you bought the house, you paid your half and the seller paid their half. Let's just do the same thing here. Number 6, all right. What's another term we're going to negotiate on our purchase and sale agreement on the buy side? Inspection clause. Okay. This is our escape clause. You have to have an escape clause in your purchase and sale agreement buy side. This is why using a standard association or realtor contract can get a little tricky, right? So you just need to make sure that you unilaterally have the right, if the wind blows sideways or the sun's not shining a certain way and you don't like the way it beams off of the back window, there has to be something that allows you to walk away during your inspection period, getting your entire earnest deposit back. You have to have an escape clause. Otherwise, it's way too much risk. Wholesaling can become riskless or close to being riskless if you have good escape clauses and you keep control of these terms in your contract. So inspection clause, you want that to be as short as possible, your inspection period, or as long as possible. What do you think? Short as possible or as long as possible?
Sarah said long.
Long,
Gary, long. Yep.
Yeah,
long. We want to stretch that way.
Smart. You guys are listening. That's what we need. That is our time to find the buyer and schedule the walkthroughs, schedule any kind of inspections. That is our time. The close of escrow is, yes, that's when everybody gets paid and the deal is done. But that inspection period, that due diligence in California, there's different terms per state, but it's an inspection period. You have to have that inspection clause in your agreement to make sure that you have that amount of time. The longer amount of time you have, you may have a buyer that says, yeah, I really want to see this property, but I can't come walk it until, a week from next Tuesday. Well, if your inspection period is only 7 days, you're going to have to get an extension on that inspection period. And now you're going back to the seller and asking for something again, right? And that puts you in a precarious position. So having that longer inspection period gives you the amount of time. And again, like Cody was talking about earlier, be transparent in that. Explain to them, listen, the contractors that I work with them because they're very respectable and they have big businesses, and that means they have big schedules. And I can't just tell them to drop everything they're doing and race over to your house because it's just never going to happen. They have families, and same thing with the inspectors, and same things with the investors that I may potentially partner with in your area too. The reason that I partner with them is because they're very high-level individuals, they're very important, and they're very savvy, and they also have very big schedules. So you have to give me enough time to articulate with their schedules and coordinate for that. So that's why, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, transparently speaking, I have that amount of window of time. The close of escrow date, that's not going to move, but my inspection period has to be this certain amount of time.